faithful to God. Certain Black Hebrew Israelites promote a fraudulent Hebrew dialect known as Lashawan Qadash, which asserts that ancient Hebrew only had two vowels, A and I. Could you quickly refute their claim? Every piece of evidence from the ancient Semitic world and from the history of the Hebrew language refutes that. Every document, the spelling of words, what are called vowel letters that are added in to help you understand how to pronounce, indicate that that is absolutely not true. The inscriptions we have from syllabaries and from languages like Akkadian and Ugaritic, which also give us hints and clues about vocalization. The ancient Old South Arabian and Gez, Ethiopic languages, everything we have from Canaanite inscriptions, and on and on and on and on. Every piece of evidence about vocalization on every level from all the Semitic languages from ancient times until today, and all documentation through all time about the Hebrew language says that's completely false. It is 100% nonsense. 100% nonsense, not to be taken seriously even for one split second. When someone makes up a claim that is completely bogus, you ask them, okay, what's the evidence for it? Because every Hebrew dictionary ever written says the opposite. Every Hebrew grammar ever written says the opposite. Every Hebrew text that has vowels in it says the opposite. Every Hebrew text with vowel letters in it says the opposite. Every ancient inscription we have from the Semitic world says the opposite. Every Semitic language on the planet says the opposite. Give me your evidence. The problem is when people believe a complete lie, a complete myth, they have no interest in evidence or truth. They're just living in a fantasy realm. That's the problem.
Nonetheless, even if you have disagreements with the way certain texts were translated, that doesn't lead to the conclusion that these men, the translators of the Septuagint, didn't know how Hebrew characters were pronounced. Their transliterations show an ancient understanding of how various Hebrew words were pronounced. And so I want to take a look at the Septuagint to show the significance of this fact. So let me show my Septuagint. We'll take my Septuagint off the shelf and we'll take a look in here. We're going to take a look at some of the transliterations that appear in this text. So first, let's go to First Chronicles chapter 6. You have the name Asir, which is spelled with an aleph. It starts with aleph, and so here it is right here, Asir. It's spelled with an aleph, yet it's transliterated with an alpha. Yet in the same verse, or the verse before, you have Elkanah, also spelled with an aleph, yet it's transliterated with an epsilon. Now, let's go to 2 Samuel, and where you have the name Ishtob, also spelled with an aleph, yet transliterated with an iota. Aside from that, let's jump to Genesis 36, where you have the name Omar, right? Omar, spelled with an aleph, transliterated with an omega. And let's jump back to First Chronicles chapter 6 again, and you have the name Uriel, spelled with an aleph, but transliterated with an omicron upsilon. Think about the implications of what was just shown. We have 5 different biblical terms, all starting with aleph, yet that initial character is transliterated 5 different ways. And this touches on a central point here. One major premise of Lashawan Qadash is that each Hebrew character has essentially only one possible vocalization. Meanwhile, the standard understanding of Hebrew, along with other Semitic languages like Arabic and Aramaic, posits that each Hebrew character has multiple possible vocalizations. The ancient transliterations that we just looked at provide clear examples of such. We see that in the ancient understanding, the aleph was not simply pronounced ah, rather it could be vocalized alternatively as ah, e, o, u, and we can show a similar spectrum for the other characters. But we see a similar spectrum of vocalizations also appearing in the New Testament, in the writings of Josephus and in the writings of Philo. Thus, we have a collection of ancient evidence in favor of the conclusion that, in the time of Christ, the Hebrew language had a spectrum of vocalizations which proponents of Lashawan Qadash claim were not part of Hebrew. Now, to be clear, this is not an argument in favor of modern Israeli Hebrew. However, it is an argument against Lashawan Qadash. I would put it this way. We have evidence, ancient evidence, in favor of a standard understanding of ancient Hebrew. Meanwhile, Lashawan Qadash has no evidence in its favor.